So pre-children, I was mostly into writing and studying. So I was saving up for a PhD, which I'm now no longer sure if I will ever get around to doing. But so I had been working part-time at Tesco whilst I was doing my master's, and then had decided I'd take a bit of a pause, try some full-time work for a while to earn a bit more money, and then got pregnant. So we took a bit of a pause, and I didn't like my job, so I figured after I'd had my baby there was no point returning to that job. So I've been working part-time, doing little bits here and there. So I've worked originally 2 days a week doing admin for a charity in Coventry, and then that was a year's contract, and then I got pregnant again and was due at the end of my contract anyway. So then I had kind of maternity leave, but kind of unemployment for a year. And then they hired me back again for another year's contract. But then I got pregnant with Icarus, and again had him kind of towards the end of my year's contract. So I'm hopeful they will rehire me again. I used to live in Suffolk when I was, not for all of my childhood, quite a significant chunk of it. And so we lived in a properly rural place. It took at least 20 minutes to get to the nearest corner shop. And I remember moving to Coventry and people being like, the other side of the city is so far away. And I was like, but it's not. It takes like half an hour. That's not far away. But I think I probably got into that mindset a bit now. I was studying in Birmingham. And when I got married, I had 1 year left of my undergrad degree in Birmingham. And my husband, who had been working in London, got a new job in Coventry. So we decided we'd move to Coventry. Then I only had to commute 2 days a week, whereas he'd have had to commute every day if we lived in Birmingham. Currently training to be a doula, and also have begun the process of becoming an ordinand, so a vicar within the Church of England. And it's going to be a really long process because I've got no time to do the reading at the minute. But I think it is a bit of a weird thing to kind of be going from no idea what I want to do to, but we'll see how that goes. I think initially I was just really amazed that he did it. Like, I don't know, just sort of always have this nagging down in the back of your head, like, what if for whatever reason, what if for whatever reason it doesn't work out? And I think, so initially I was like, oh, this is great. And they were like, oh, it'll hurt a little bit. So I didn't really worry that it hurt. And I ended up being in hospital. I didn't need to be, it turns out. But anyway, I ended up being in hospital for about 3 days. And kind of each time someone was saying, oh, how's the feeding going? And I'd say, it's really painful. Like, this doesn't feel right. It's really, really painful. Like, oh, but you've not fed before. You know, you're not used to this. It's meant to hurt. It's really going to hurt because it's the first time. And they were like, oh, what kind of pain is it? So I don't know what kind of pain. I've never experienced this before. Like, I can't tell you if it's like a deep pain or a nipple pain. Anyway, just knew it was not good. And then basically kept being told, oh, it looks like he's latching really well. Or even worse, I can't really see, but I think it's a good latch. So then I'm like, well, if you're saying it's good latch, and everyone's looking at him saying, well, he's not got a tongue tie and everything's perfectly fine. And it just really wasn't. And it took about a week. Yeah, after a week, I think I had a midwife came and saw me on day 5 or something like that, or maybe even day 7. I can't quite remember. And she just said, oh, you're like wincing. You're not able to talk to me while you're feeding. Like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And I just sort of said, oh, it's really sore, but I keep being told this is normal. And she put me in touch with the infant feeding team in Coventry, who were really great. Like, they just came and sat with me and helped me figure out how to latch him a bit better. And basically said, yeah, he does have a bit of a tongue tie and he's struggling to stay latched on deep enough, and gave me some techniques, and kind of it improved, but wasn't perfect. But probably by the time he's about 6 weeks old, I was like, okay, yeah, we've got this now. We're definitely fine. And then I fed him he just self-weaned when I was pregnant with my next. So he was about 18 months. And I was a bit sad. I didn't want to stop, but equally, like, that was his choice. So it was a bit sad because he went from like being perfectly content on the boob to like the next feed just literally screamed and refused it and then never had it again. I'd come out of it feeling like, actually, you know, that first bit was hard, but now I know how it's meant to be. That should massively improve things for next time. But I think it's just a lot of self-doubt. And I think it was probably the same in my labour. Like, I had a textbook labour with him, but actually, like, it didn't feel very good at all. And I think similar with the breastfeeding, really, again, like, it could have been even once it was going fine, I still didn't fully know what I was doing until afterwards. I was suddenly like, oh, we've done this for ages, like of course I know what I'm doing. So then so that was my first. And then with number 2, he had a really noticeable tongue tie, like me and my husband saw it straight away. And even the midwife, who was like, I'm not trained in this, but I can see that he's got that. And it was painful. But I think because I'd fed a baby before, they were like, when I said it hurt, they were like, okay, well, see what we can do. And on day 5 or day 6, I think we paid someone to snip it for us because it was getting worse, and the referral for them to do it on the NHS was going to be free absolutely ages. And it definitely improved after that, but I think it had got a lot more, I'd had a lot more like damage whilst he was latching badly, so it took a lot longer for it to feel better. But I think I was just quite disconnected from the feed. So whilst basically what I remember of feeding him in the early days is it hurt and I didn't enjoy it because it was taking me away from my older son, and probably also it was just reminding me of how labour had gone and it was difficult. And that was not didn't feel like a particularly pleasant experience until probably when he was about 6 months old. I started to actually properly enjoy the time that I was feeding him, which was nice, and I was like able to be there in the moment with him rather than kind of disassociated from what was happening. At the time, I don't think I really realised. It was one of those like, all the health visitors and midwives are saying, how are you feeling? And you think, oh yeah, I'm okay at the minute. But actually, like, I don't think I was, but I don't think I really realised at the time that I wasn't okay. There's less time pressure, isn't there? If you've got a clinic appointment, you've got like a half-hour slot where you hope that your baby feeds. And actually for mine, I got the wrong time and I turned up half an hour early, like having not fed him. So he was like ready for a feed. Half an hour of kind of just like, come on, please see me really, really soon, because he was very upset and hungry. It's a lot easier if someone's got the time and the being allowed to, because of not having a silly virus going around, to be able to just sit. And actually I reckon half their job is probably just chatting to new mums and making sure they're okay a lot of the time. Yeah, my husband's been really supportive actually. Like he, particularly with my second, where I was really struggling every feed, like in the night pretty much, I'd wake him up for every feed and he'd just sit and like just do like things like gently stroking my hair, because then I had something like positive to think about. And yeah, a lot of like, he's just amazing actually. I'd say he's probably like the biggest champion for me in terms of breastfeeding. I don't think I could have kept going many of them really, like without him, which is really wonderful. And I've got a couple of friends who have breastfed, and sometimes it was just a case of knowing that somebody else was also saying it wasn't straightforward, or like, people will get given different advice. So like, this advice didn't work for me, but you can have it, just try this just in case. And that was really incredible. I was part of an NCT group with my first, and we've all kept in touch throughout, even 4 years later now. And I found that a lot of them to be very supportive, which has been really great, even like via WhatsApp since lockdown and stuff, which has been really good. The main reason we did it, like we didn't really feel that much that we needed to learn lots about it, because we'd had quite a few like nieces that had been born, so we'd spent a lot of time with them, so we kind of felt like we understood a fair bit, probably not everything, but I don't think even the NCT course prepared us for everything, but definitely we joined it because we were like, oh okay, then there's 8 people who I know are having babies at the same time, who, even if we don't all get on, that's quite a lot of, I say 8 people, 8 couples. It'd be amazing if that was available. It is really sad. It's like with doulas and things as well, actually, like it's really sad that it has to be something that you have, it's quite a privilege to afford it. And the tongue tie thing, yeah, it was a 2-week wait, I think, from the point of being referred. And I think I've heard people having to wait a lot longer, but I don't think I'd have kept, certainly with Harvey, I wouldn't have kept feeding him for another 2 weeks it just was so bad. I don't think I physically could have kept going. I just think if men had babies and if men breastfed, all this stuff, it might not all be free and it might not all be straightforward, but there would be a lot of people doing all of these different things like infant feeding support. There'd be a lot more of that, and just, I don't know, people would be investing a lot more money into it, I think. I guess because he, certainly for that first couple of weeks he's there all the time, and even after that in the night and it is always a lot harder in the night. I don't know whether it's just because you're more tired or there's nothing else to focus on or what, but yeah, he would sit with me quite a lot, and just certainly with my second, it got to the point where, because I'd had the C-section, he was getting up to do the nappy, like change the nappy and all of that stuff initially anyway. We got to the point where I could definitely physically have done those things, but he was still kind of getting up in the night to like just be with me really, and kind of distract me or like encourage me. And I remember a few times it was one of those, it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle of it really hurts to latch your baby on, so then you're really tense and then you can't latch your baby on properly, and he'd kind of be there to try and keep the baby calm, like, so I'd basically be there trying really hard not to scream, and he'd just hold the baby, like stroke his head, like just particularly with Harvey, but with all of them, like stroke their head and say it's okay, so that at least, certainly in my mind, at least what the baby's feeling isn't my stress, and therefore it kind of relaxes the whole situation a lot more, which, yeah, he's been fantastic really. I don't think I'd have kept going very easily. I don't think I'd have kept going at all really if he hadn't been supporting me. Not had any negativity actually at all. Like I've had a couple of people like come up to me and say, oh, like that's amazing that you're just feeding. I think I've never made any attempt to cover up, because it's so hard. It was so hard as infants to get them to latch anyway. There was no way that I was going to like put a cloth over their head so I couldn't see what they were doing at all times. And a couple of people come up to me and said, oh, I'm really glad that you've like felt comfortable enough to feed here. And certainly like, oh dear. Certainly like a couple of cafes that I quite like to go to, where they're like really, I think just they felt pleased that then, you know, people know that that's like a safe space to be. And I've not had any like funny looks or funny comments or anything like that, which I find really great, because I definitely read a lot of stories from other people that are saying there's quite a negative reaction. So I think a lot of the time it's very hard to kind of plan things. So it was hard to kind of know, you know, when I first got pregnant, I thought, oh, okay, well, by the time he's born, we'll be back to normal. And I think therefore kind of assuming, well, I'll be at baby groups, so I will be feeding alongside other mums, and all of those things will be back up and running. And of course they're not yet still. Well, some are, but they weren't when he was born in January. So I think that was quite a big shift. And also like I contacted the infant feeding team after he was born as well, but again, like, you know, previously they'd have come and sat in my living room and just essentially waited till he was ready. You know, they'd have tried to time it where he might be hungry, but who knows, and they'd have just sat and waited till he was ready for a feed. And actually what initially happened was someone video called me, but they videoed called me kind of 20 minutes after he just finished a feed and he was fast asleep. So of course they said, okay, well, what time do you think he'll feed again? And this is a 3 or 4 day old baby. I don't know what time he's going to feed again. And so then I had to go to the infant feeding clinic, which was better. Like, I'm not sure how I'd have latched him on and held a phone to like show what was going on anyway. But even then it's just a lot harder, because again, you're suddenly like, you're sat on a sofa that's not your own sofa, and you've got like different cushions to what you'd have at home. So actually how do you then latch a baby on at home where it's actually very different? And yeah, I think it was quite a lot more challenging just accessing that service. And I love that service was still running, but it was much less good experience with the team, not because of the team, but just because of how it's set up, compared with when I spoke to them before. So that's definitely been more of a challenge. And also I think, I guess previously I love going to baby groups. I like being in cafes and chatting to people. I like socializing generally. So previously I would have been out of the house within a week or two of giving birth in order to like just go and meet a few new people, not necessarily every day. And in that respect, like, I missed the connection with other new mums, particularly like just the chance to like just sit and not be like exercising with a pushchair. But on the other hand, I've not previously then experienced any level of just being at home and just creating that like family bubble. And actually that was quite a good experience. Like, I'd had him at home, and the midwives hadn't arrived in time. So actually it had just been me and James and Icarus. So actually kind of had that, and then had quite a few days where it was just us, or like my parents were our support bubble came. And I think previously that would have driven me crazy, but actually it was really good to have that bonding time, and that, I don't know, just lying in bed together and chilling out rather than having to be at a hospital or not at, or traveling home or going out all the time to baby groups and stuff. So I think there's been good and bad. I guess sometimes if you've had a great birth, it's often because you felt able to trust your whatever's going on, like trust your body and trust your baby. And then I think it's helpful if you're breastfeeding to be able to be trusting your body and being like, oh, okay, yeah, it is the right milk for him, and it is, eventually we will get the hang of this together, kind of thing, which makes a big difference, I think.